You're listening to the Normal Network, where the time is 4:20, 24/7, 365.
Live from Portland, Oregon, it's time for A Different View, a lively women's roundtable discussion on marijuana issues, brought to you in part by the Normal Women's Alliance, with Portland Dispensaries Examiner Jennifer Alexander, Alternative Medical Choices founder Iva Cunningham, and Moms for Marijuana founder Sarah Frank. Now, here's A Different View.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. It's April 2nd, the day after April Fool's Day. And yesterday there was some big news, and today it carried over. Oaksterdam in California, Richard Lee, founder of Oaksterdam, was raided this morning. When I was looking at the news chat, it was saying that it was started yesterday.
Did it start yesterday?
You may be getting chat from overseas, where it's the next day and they're talking about it.
Okay, well, they were saying Monday. That's why I was thinking, today is
Monday.
Duh.
You can tell it's Monday.
It's not only a different view, it's a different calendar.
Okay, I'm starting off great. Well, we don't have Jennifer Alexander tonight. It's just Sarah and I. We miss Jennifer, and we wish her well and hope to see her next week. Mm-hmm. We've got a good show. We're going to talk a little bit about Oaksterdam and what's going on there, and then a few lawmakers who appealed to Congress and said stop the raids. And then our Normal Women's Alliance guest tonight, I'm looking forward to interviewing Cheri Sicard. She's written an interesting book. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But in her past life, before she turned to cannabis activism, she was a circus performer, musician, and a mentalist.
Wow.
So I'm looking forward to having a conversation with her about all of that. Yeah. So, and then we also came back from Idaho. Went to Idaho this weekend. Mm-hmm. You got to spend some time with some of the folks in Idaho for the Idaho
home
Fest.
For a little bit. And
it was a quick trip, but it was fun.
Yeah. See all the familiar faces we miss so much.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there too, and we can catch up on that as well. Yes. We're gonna take a quick break, and then we'll be back to talk a little bit more about what the goings are on in the nation with cannabis news. You're listening to A Different View. Thanks for joining.
I'm on a rampage, Jack, I'm mellow. I'm so high and so dry. I'm way up in the sky. The world seems light and I'm so right, Jack, I'm mellow.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana is the wonderful aroma. But when you travel a lot like I do, that aroma becomes a suspicious smell. That's why I endorse stealth-products.com, the leaders in smell-proof containers. From smell-proof vacuum bags to smell-proof backpacks and duffel bags, all the way to smell-proof digital safes, stealth-products.com has you covered. Stealth-products.com brings you safe, secure, odorless layers of protection with activated carbon fiber. Backpacks and duffel bags are simple black so as not to attract attention with a logo or flashy design. Now, nothing is perfectly odor controlled from the detection of drug dogs, but with proper vigilance, containers from stealth-products.com will help you avoid nosy humans.
You're now listening to Elliot Beats.
Stealth-products.com. Stealth-products.com.
When Mark Emery can be free to run his business.
Now we're back with A Different View.
Thanks for joining us. So today, I thought today was Tuesday. Gosh, I need to take a day off. Anyway, Richard Lee, founder of Oaksterdam, raided today. Richard Lee was a major chief petitioner and funder of Prop 19 for legalization in California last
Please keep talking at your mic.
Okay, I'm trying to talk at my mic. Okay. I'm so saucy.
Yes, Richard Lee was the chief petitioner, put $1.5 million of his own money into Prop 19 in 2010, which got 46.5% of the vote.
So if we had legalization, this wouldn't even be a news topic today.
Right.
That's what's so sad. And if you don't know Richard Lee, he's wheelchair bound from a spinal injury. Oaksterdam does a lot of education and teaching. That's primarily what they do, isn't it? I mean, I think that they...
Yeah, it's a trade college. You can learn how to cultivate cannabis. You can learn how to, learn what the laws are, learn how to open up a collective. It's basically...
Think about the business and industry of cannabis, but also the medicinal aspect of it as well.
Empowering growers, and teaching people how to grow.
He doesn't have a dispensary or anything like that, does he?
I don't know exactly what... I can't speak to that. I don't know. I know that he had a coffee shop, Blue Sky, where you could get cannabis, but he moved that in order to be more than 1,000 feet away from a school. And DEA actually raided that today, even though he's not there anymore. They raided his location.
Building?
Yeah,
Wow.
But it's now like some vegan deli or something.
Oh, no.
Oh, nice.
But it used to be...
no cannabis there at all.
No.
But they went in and raided it anyway because it used to be.
Because they had the address on their little paper, so...
Well, they have to enforce it. That's so
what a horrible
to me.
day for them.
Thanks for wasting all the money busting a bunch of vegans. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
And of course, don't forget that at the same time that this raid was going down, there was a tragic school shooting in Oakland, just a neighborhood away, where 7 people were killed, and the shooter's still on the loose, as far as I understand.
Oh, so all of the police were raiding Oaksterdam, messing with patients, and Richard Lee, and raiding a vegan deli.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, just to, across the way, a few miles away, 7 people are dead, and a killer's on the loose.
School shooting, yeah. And I spoke with Dale Sky Jones today on the show, Chancellor of Oaksterdam, and she said... I asked her, how many police do you think were taken away from this? Because it wasn't that the Oakland police were participating in the raid. They were just providing the security for DEA, IRS, and other agents. Basically crowd control, riot control is what they were there for. So she estimated 20, 30, 40. She couldn't say because there's so many different locations.
Really?
Yeah.
So now how many locations altogether were raided?
Well, I know that Richard Lee's house, the Cafe Blue Sky, I got a report on my Twitter that Todd McCormick, another activist, was raided today as well.
What do you think prompted the raid? I mean, was there anything that came out?
I think these U.S. attorneys have decided, in the words of the DA in Houston when I was there for the Baker Institute, they've decided to cut the head off the snake.
Well, it doesn't make any sense.
I think what their tactic here now is that in order to stop this progression of medical marijuana and the political power that it's gaining, they need to cut the head off the snake, meaning the leaders in medical marijuana and the people who have the established, well-run businesses that A, can provide the money and support for political campaigns and activism, but B, provide such a great model of marijuana distribution that it causes the public to go, gee, why don't we just do this for everyone's marijuana?
This is ridiculous. This is kind of what you expect, though, when you're making political ground, when you're gaining, you expect a huge blowback like this. You expect that, and it's frightening, but it's also encouraging at the same time, because I do see that this is an opportunity to empower more people, because generally people become activists when they get ticked off. You and I were talking about the difference between stoners and potheads.
Right.
People that are potheads are people who are educated activists, and stoners just don't care yet.
Right.
And and a pothead's probably had to deal with, some legal confrontation or something like that, or saw some sort of injustice in prohibition. And I think, as bad as this is, as much as it sucks, I also think that on the other side it's going to tick off a lot of people, and it should tick off a lot of people.
What they're not realizing is that this is not some snake that they're cutting the head off. This is a hydra.
It's a hydra.
Yeah.
Excellent metaphor.
And we're going to come back double force.
Is that
and
a
then
simile?
Triple and
I'm not sure.
Analogy.
I don't know what day it is, so...
But no, you're right. I think there's a situation that can happen where, especially when you have it as good as they have it in California, where people can become complacent about it. And this will definitely rally and activate people to not be as complacent, I guess, if there's a silver lining to be found.
That's just it. I think this reaffirms, because when we go to the Seattle Hemp Fest and we go to different, so get your legal weed, it's not legal. It's not legal, and it's really frustrating. But if it were legal, this would not be an issue. This wouldn't be in the
they'd
news
be tracking
today.
down that killer, and
There's no motivation.
not raiding vegans.
Right. Let's raid the vegans. Darn it, they need protein. It doesn't make any sense. And and hopefully there'll be enough people that have been sitting on the sidelines, kind of watching from the bleachers, and like, wait a minute, this is really injustice. This is a man who taught people about the industry, who tried to shape some sort of regulation, and this is exactly why we need to keep fighting long past medical. Just keep fighting for our civil rights, for our, sovereignty over our own bodies and decisions.
It doesn't matter what the use is, if you're
Right.
using medically or recreationally,
care.
or wanting to grow hemp and use it industrially, or whatever it is. It's all the same plant and it's all the same fight.
Right.
We're fighting for our right to do these things,
Right.
and we can all come together.
Well, what I want to know is, what is the true crime? Where's the harm here? What is it that motivated them to go after them, other than it's a political statement? But why would they go after someone who's really just a peaceful activist? I mean, what is he doing? The people he's not in the streets. People are coming to him
Right.
to pay him for his expertise and education.
And they're always going after the the Berkeley Patient Group, Harborside, and
'Cause they're the
Oaksterdam,
biggest.
but they're not going after the Dock in the Box on Venice Beach, or
Right.
they want to go after
Or
the
the
big
over
players.
prescribers, or they're not going after those people, and it's but hopefully this will spur some of the people that are sitting out there on the sidelines. This injustice just can't go on anymore, and this is exactly why we need legalization. If there was ever an example, it's because who cares what who cares about the cannabis education? He wasn't doing anything.
Our chatters have some great stuff going on. They're saying the Emperor of Japan said after the Pearl Harbor attack, "I think we have awoken a sleeping giant." Mm-hmm. And Georgia Mom in the chat says that, "I think they're playing right into our hands." Mm-hmm. I get a lot of people on my show that say, Obama will be better in the second term because he won't have to face re-election, and others that say, they have this idea that there's these tactics at play, like maybe he's letting the U.S. attorneys run amok so that it will activate people to do what he wants to do, but he doesn't have yet the support to pull off. I don't know. That's awfully complex.
That's
to
a bit
me.
of a stretch to me. I think he's had plenty of opportunities to make a statement and take a stand, and he just hasn't done it yet. And and maybe there is some truth to that. I don't know, but I don't know if he's going to be a two-term president, and that's a huge gamble for a lot of people's livelihoods and safety and freedom. To take that kind of gamble, and it seems a little selfish to me, if you ask me. Mm-hmm. It's like, we voted you to make change. You're going to get that happen. You're going to make that happen. Let's get it done. But and the other thing, we were watching right before we went to Idaho. Remember the couple here locally that got busted?
Oh yeah,
yeah. And this is what they reported. Well, we didn't even know. They seemed like normal folks to us. They were just general neighbors,
yeah.
and basically, I don't. They didn't say whether they were medical patients or not, but their garden was a little large.
Oh, they had dozens of plants. They had 100 or so. I don't remember.
I don't even think
maybe
it was
40,
that many.
50 or something.
Yeah, but it wasn't much. But the point was that the neighbors were like, we didn't even know.
I didn't even know they were there.
They didn't know they were there.
And they're corrupting the neighborhood.
Right, and so now they're like, oh, we're so shocked. We're so shocked that so what? They didn't do anything. You didn't know before, so what's the big deal now? Why is it a big deal now when you didn't even notice? We weren't bothered by it. The smell didn't bother you. Didn't see a bunch of people coming in and out. Mm-hmm. There wasn't any guns. There wasn't any gunfire. There wasn't any stabbings on the street. I mean, it seems ridiculous and overkill to go after people who aren't doing anything to anyone else.
Yeah.
Where's the harm? I want to know where the harm is and why we need to spend this much money going after somebody who isn't hurting anybody else.
Well, like we were talking, there was a group of Idahoans who sat down with Governor Otter recently and talked about, what was going on in Idaho. And in Idaho, they'll put you in jail just for having residue inside of a film canister, and they'll spend.
Oh, they'll harass you.
They'll harass you, and they'll throw you in jail. It's a misdemeanor it's paraphernalia, and they'll throw you in jail and waste all these police resources, yet, there's meth running rampant on the streets, and there's, our schools are losing funding, and they're having to cut all these bus routes, and our city's going broke. And it's like, wait a minute, why aren't our priorities right here,
Right. Well, I was talking about school systems. How much does it cost to educate a school, and how much are we paying to do a raid on somebody who's just providing education?
Right.
I mean, that doesn't make sense to me. Wouldn't we want to put more money into our education system instead of pouring it down, doing something here that doesn't make any sense?
And the cost to house one person in jail for a year because of cannabis,
right?
We could send them to college for 4 years, and they could get an actual education and be beneficial to our society. Oh my goodness!
Yeah, it would almost make one think that we didn't want to have educated people.
Well, I think there's a lot of motivation behind not having an educated mass. I mean, it does. Even when we've had people around here that have gotten raided or busted or whatever, when their businesses were shut down, it's such a tragedy because there are people who depend upon them. There are people that I'm sure depend upon Richard Lee and his kindness and what he does there. And he's actually been a path burner for a lot of people. A lot of people look up to him, and I've talked to Richard. And he's a very nice gentleman, and it's just a sad thing to happen because it doesn't make any sense.
An unfortunate part of progress. We do have to. There's an old, I think, saying that goes, at first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, and then they fight you. And I think we're at that point where they're fighting us.
Well, I think they're starting to take us seriously. That this is like Rose said, that there is a lot more support today than there was maybe 5-10 years ago, and and that's their mistake.
Well, what's great is the next step is we win.
Right, that's the next step. We win, and that's what happened in Prohibition when the cards start falling and people start doing this kind of thing. We're like, this is not going to happen on our streets in America. It's not going to happen anymore. So it's time that we stood up, we fought, we fight back.
It's time we talk about this.
I think, we've been talking about it. We've been talking about it. It's time to show up in solidarity. It's time to be in unity, and it's time to get to the front lines and say enough is enough. I'm not saying being violent, but I'm saying it's time to show up and show your support, even if you don't consider yourself an activist. It's time to be present.
Yes.
All right, you're listening to A Different View. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
I'm a doctor. I'm a lawyer. I'm a journalist.
I'm a student.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a representative.
I have cancer.
The outdated laws of prohibition are more dangerous than the plant itself.
I lost my scholarship.
I was fired.
20 million arrests since 1965. This is getting ridiculous. Our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent offenders.
We have the opportunity to change.
This is costing our country billions of dollars.
Making my family and I fight in a courtroom is difficult enough when I'm already fighting through chemotherapy.
There's no reason to be scared by tradition anymore.
We can stop this. We can stop this.
We are the American people.
We can stop this.
And you have our support.
We're old,
young,
straight,
gay.
We're every race and nationality.
And we're not going to give up.
You can tax it.
You can regulate it.
Apply age restrictions.
You can create millions of new jobs.
We can save our economy.
President Obama?
It's time for legalization.
Legalization.
Yes.
We
can.
View is brought to you by the Normal Women's Alliance, a nonpartisan coalition of socially and geographically diverse women who believe that marijuana prohibition is a self-destructive and hypocritical policy that undermines the American family. They bring a contemporary approach to the policy debate and are proudly representing the interests of modern mainstream women who believe in legalizing marijuana.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We have Cheri Sicard on the line. Cheri is our Normal Women's Alliance guest. You've had an interesting past, Cheri.
Yes, I have.
Yeah,
I certainly have.
I love how, in the description of you, you've been a circus performer, magician, and mentalist.
That was early on in my career, yes. I got to travel the world. Excuse me?
No, that's okay. Go ahead. I was going to let you listen.
Oh, okay. I got to travel the world, and that's where I first got interested in cooking because I was traveling the world, and I've always been a foodie, so I got to learn as I was traveling. And then later, much later, I got into being a professional food writer. And when I got into cannabis in my late 30s, early 40s, it was natural for me to start writing about food. So I now have the Cannabis Gourmet Cookbook.
So now, are you a cook of cannabis? Do you use cannabis in your cooking a lot? I mean, are these recipes that you've created yourself, or are these recipes that you've just gathered?
No, they're recipes I created myself. As I said, I was a food writer and recipe developer before I got into cannabis. So these are recipes I created specifically for the book, and they take cannabis cooking way beyond the typical cookies and brownies.
Well, I'm looking at the website where your book is, the Cannabis Gourmet Cookbook, which is at www.cannabischeri.com /buy the book. The picture that you have there looks delicious. I think that shrimp that I see is just yummy.
Right, that's New Orleans barbecued shrimp, which really isn't barbecued. I don't know why they call it that. They do strange things in New Orleans sometimes. But it's a very flavorful dish with lots of herbs and spices and garlic, so you don't even taste the cannabis in that one, even though it is medicated. All the recipes, of course, are medicated. I also teach you how to cook with cannabis, everything from how to dose it, cooking with hash and keys, making butter and oil, even how to adapt your own favorite recipes for cannabis cooking.
So you show people the whole process of how to. Somebody was telling me how to make flour out of cannabis. I think it was Yellow Wanna Cake was talking about how to make flour out of cannabis.
You can do that too. It's not one of my favorite ways of cooking, so I don't have that in the book. I don't like the flavor of it myself, but some people do like to do that too. But I'm really a foodie, so I really tried to focus on flavor as well in developing these recipes. And some people like that herbal flavor in their food, but I try to minimize it as much as possible.
Well, I always say that if it doesn't taste good, it's not going to be eaten, and and if it's medicine for a lot of people, if it tastes like alfalfa, it's not going to be eaten, and it's pointless after that. But it's exciting to see people bring out new recipes. You get the typical brownies, you get the Rice Krispie treats, you get that kind of thing. So it's kind of exciting to see a more developed recipes that are that you can incorporate into everyday life, because that's the one thing that I always tell people is find a way to make it a part of your everyday life and cook with it, just to keep yourself at a therapeutic level of pain relief or relief of symptoms. So it's exciting to come up with some, I can't wait to try that.
Oh, that's really yummy.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of advantages to making your own medibles because you can really customize them for your own needs, like what you said, keeping a therapeutic dose all day. You don't have to feel high to get a therapeutic dose.
Right.
Some people like that, and edibles are a great way to keep a low dose in your system throughout the day. Some people have a higher tolerance and they need more medicine, or they like specific strains. So when you make it yourself, you can really customize it to what you need, both on the medicinal side and also on the dietary side. If you have specific dietary restrictions, you can really customize those edibles to what you need to be. So I think there's really a lot of advantages to doing it yourself.
I agree. And then you always have control of what the ingredients are. So,
Exactly.
To me, as a control freak, I kind of want to know what's in my food. You also work, you've been working a lot with the Human Solution. Tell us a little bit about what the Human Solution is.
The Human Solution is a grassroots organization here in Southern California, but we are growing, that works to educate people about the truth about cannabis, and we also do a lot of court support. We're also the people with those little green ribbons with the red crosses, the solidarity ribbons. So if you see those, that's from the Human Solution, and it's a way to kind of identify people when we are at a court support, not only to each other, but also to the judge, to the jury, to the bailiffs. It's a very peaceful little symbol, but they know we're there and they feel our presence.
And now what does court support involve exactly for
Court support is really one of the easiest ways anybody can get active in this movement. And I'm glad you asked that, because all you have to do is show up to a cannabis case. There's cases going on all the time in our justice system of legitimate medical marijuana providers being prosecuted.
Absolutely.
And most times in courtrooms, those courtrooms are empty. There's nobody there with the defendant, and nobody sees what goes on. And there's a lot of shenanigans that goes on, and I'm being polite there. But when you have a courtroom full of people, it makes a tremendous difference, both to the defendant for moral support, but also the court is really aware that people are watching, and it makes a tremendous difference.
Mm-hmm. And the pressure would be on to do things correctly rather than try to pull so many shenanigans. And you know, we have a couple of attorneys that come on the show every now and then, and it's you know, it's always eye-opening to hear what goes on during arraignment or case hearings. It's just, you know, and juries don't always know what they have the right to do and don't have the right to do.
Well, exactly. And the Human Solution founder, Joe Grumbine, is in such a case right now where we had a really biased judge who recused himself at the 11th hour. It's quite a drama. We go back to court tomorrow with a new judge. So,
wow, the judge recused himself.
At the last minute. It's really a long story, and you should have Joe Grumbine on sometime to tell it. But yes, at the last minute, the judge, who was really outrageously biased through the entire trial, wrote a letter to the prosecutor praising her performance before the trial was even over. So
oh, my goodness.
Caught doing that. So he claims not to be biased, but in order to avoid an appearance of impropriety, he recused himself right before sentencing.
That's justice. Yet another reason why it needs to be legalized. Think about how our court systems would change if we weren't busting people for just, you know, little bits of marijuana here and there or providing marijuana. It so frustrates me the way our system works. It just seems like such a huge waste of time. We shouldn't be putting people in prison, you know, for cannabis. We should be putting people in prison for actually violating other people. Mm-hmm. You know, whether
that. So we have.
Go ahead. No, that's go ahead. There's a little bit of a delay.
We have to change the system, which is, for me, is one of the reasons I'm working with the Normal Women's Alliance, because women are one of the toughest demographics standing in the way to legalization.
Absolutely.
So we're really seeking to educate, especially women, about the issues regarding cannabis and how the war on drugs does more harm than the substance itself.
Well, I think with groups like Moms for Marijuana and Normal Women's Alliance and Cannabis Culture and a few other, women-focused, Cheryl Schumann, I mean, there's a lot of other people, a lot of women out there, the professional women that are really trying to bring attention to this fight. And, these are professional women who have families and jobs and businesses. And, these are educated women who are coming out saying this is ridiculous. It is time to really pay attention to this, because it's not just about the guy smoking a joint on the corner. It's about our kids and their future. It's about our environment and its future. It's about what we, as a country, what we can produce and our economy. And putting people in jail, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't work. It's not working, and we need to try something else. And keeping the status quo has been, our ultimate failure in this fight. Is that's why it's failing, because we haven't tried anything new.
Exactly. It didn't work with alcohol prohibition, and prohibition just doesn't work, period, no matter what.
Anytime you say no, anytime somebody says you got to go on a diet, the first thing I think of is, oh my gosh, I can't have cheeseburger. Anytime you restrict somebody, you're like, wait a minute, I want that.
As one of my friends from LEAP says, I think it's Peter Christ who says it, the first prohibition, when God told Eve not to eat the apple didn't work.
Right. There's your example.
There you go.
There you go.
That's
Enough
a long
said.
history of not working.
Hey, Cheri,
it still doesn't work.
Cheri, I had a question for you. Being here in Portland, Oregon, we get a lot of exposure to very alternative diets, I guess we could say. Vegetarians,
right.
Vegans, gluten-free. It seems like there's a new one every week. Does your cookbook go into some of those recipes?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. We get that too.
Sure.
This book is a general book that I did for everybody, and it's a wide variety. And there's some of those recipes, but a lot of it's not. I'm working on volume 2 now. That is going to be healthy cooking, more gluten-free, vegan, vegetarian, things like that, diabetic-friendly. But this book was just, I wanted a wide variety of recipes that would appeal to a wide variety of people, and just to show people, what you can really do with cannabis cooking if you get creative with it. It doesn't have to be the same old thing.
Can you give us the website so people can go and order your book or take a look at it and read a little bit more about it?
Sure. And it's also about activism, too, because I'm an activist as much as a cook. But it's cannabischeri.com, and Cheri is spelled Cheri. So cannabischeri.com.
So that's www.cannabischeri.com.
Correct.
Okay, yeah. The book looks great, and you can order it. It looks like it's $25.
That's correct, and there's over 120 recipes, as I said, and also all the information about how to cook with cannabis, how to develop your own recipes. And also my book before this was The Complete Idiot's Guide to Easy Freezer Meals, not a cannabis cookbook, but I incorporated that too. So whenever possible, there's freezing and reheating instructions with these recipes, because when you're making medicated foods, you don't necessarily want to, nor should you, eat a whole batch of something at once. So,
no.
No. So this allows you to save for later.
Although I've known some people who try.
Yeah, but not usually a good idea. So this allows you to save some for later and dole it out when you need it, and I think that's a pretty practical application.
Well, great.
They look delicious.
Thank you.
Well, and I always love it when people come up with new recipes, because I do get tired of the same old stuff all the time. And, cannabis can be put in, mixed with just so many different things.
It's just like any other.
So many. And and we go into soup, salads, entrees, breakfast.
I'm looking at your website, and there's
drinks, desserts.
Mini pumpkin pies. I'm ecstatic to try that one. Pumpkin's something that I can actually eat with my diet and my conditions.
Oh, okay.
So
that's something else I tried to do with the recipes. You mentioned mini pies. I tried to do things that were portion controlled too, so people can make it easier. So the mini pies or cupcakes instead of a whole cake, things like that.
Yeah, you don't want to eat a whole pumpkin pie.
To do that. Right.
I'd eat a pumpkin pie. Well, Cheri, it's been great to talk to you. Keep us informed of what is going on in your life. We'd love to have you back on sometime. Congratulations on the book, and keep up the good fight.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
You bet. You listen to Different View. We'll be right back.
From Table Rock I can see the stars, but my own keeps getting dimmer. The city of trees has canopied my decline, but people still think I'm doing fine. Boise, you are the ashtray that's always full. We chain smoke our lives away, lured by your loving glow. When I'm with you, I feel so behind, but people still think I'm doing fine.
Alternative Medical Choices offers healthcare the way it should be. Easy to access, patient-centered, team-based, and quality-focused. We offer a variety of natural, affordable healthcare treatment options like primary care, group acupuncture, massage, and assistance with OMP registration. As a patient, you will have a team of experts working with you to make you the best you can be. Call Alternative Medical Choices at 503-288-5579 or check us out on the web at altmedchoices.com.
Stands at the back of the bus station, his ticket in hand, earphones all full of the melodies of his favorite band. With his worn out jeans and his rustic heart, this country boy is taking part in the city of trees, in the city.
And we're back with A Different View. I'm Sarah Frank, and I'm here with Iva, and we're missing Jennifer tonight, and we hope that she'll join us again next week. We had a trip to Idaho.
Yeah, that song was a
weekend.
tribute song to Boise.
Yeah, that was all about Boise and the city of trees. I had a great visit. It was just spur of the moment. I got to see most everybody I wanted to see and talk a lot about what they've got going on there. Mm-hmm. Like I said, they sat down with Governor Otter, and they're talking at least. And
well, and Idaho also has Tim Tom
Trail.
Tom Trail. Gosh, I'm bad with names.
And he's got legislation that's not really going anywhere.
So you think it's dead in the water, or do you think that...
I think he'll keep trying, and that would be good, and all of it, just like...
As long as he keeps talking about it.
Idaho Medical Choice Act, which, it's struggling a little to get going, but this is just the first step.
Right.
We try and try and we try again. And
well, maybe you won't even have to fight for medical if we can just get one state to legalize.
Right. And then it'll cascade
Came
that
from
way.
there.
Who knows? But like we were saying before, anything pro-cannabis is a step in the right direction.
Right.
And the details are what we need to work out later.
Right. And as long as we're keeping the conversation alive, people are starting to think about it. And it makes the conversation more acceptable. And the more acceptable the conversation is, you can get really crazy and say, let's just free the weed. And, people start thinking about those things in reality terms. And they, wow, we can really make this happen.
And it's, great to see, just going back a year later. I've lived in Oregon for a year now, and going back a year later and seeing just how they've kept going, and they've just kept fighting, and they keep fighting, and they're going to keep fighting for this because it's for the patients.
Right.
We have somebody who gets busted with 69 pounds, and that's, obviously not a personal amount, but we can see where the policy problems are. We can see with one officer calling from one state to another and that violating that patient's medical privacy.
Well, yeah, that's what we done when we stopped at the 45th parallel, which is in Ontario, Oregon, which is on the border of Idaho and Oregon, for those who are not familiar. And it's kind of the last stop before you hit the Idaho border. And, there's a lot of patients. In Oregon, you can be an out-of-state patient. So the people from Idaho are coming to Oregon to become patients. And then they come to the 45th parallel. And then as soon as they crossed the border into Idaho, they get pulled over and they get busted and arrested.
Well, and something Russ said, right as we cross over that Snake River, we just feel the criminality wash off of us. And it's like, no, wait a minute. How does this imaginary line keep me from being a criminal in one state and make me a criminal in another? This is...
My symptom doesn't go a long way just because I cross the border.
Yeah, I don't magically get well and suddenly just I'm doing it to get high now.
I mean, wouldn't that be great? You come across the border and suddenly you can walk again.
I wouldn't be living in Oregon.
Cancer.
I'd be home in Idaho if I could magically cross that border.
Well, I know Russ and I talked about that too. As we're driving around, Nampa, Idaho, Russ's hometown, we were talking about how we kind of miss our family and how we feel like, that our nieces and nephews have grown up and we just have missed so much. We've missed out on a lot. And, my mom's getting up there in age, and I would like to be there, for the last few years or however long that is. And it's kind of sad, but the reality is that there's no way I can live in Idaho right now. There's no way. I have been exiled from my home state because I am not, I'm a criminal there. And here there's at least some small protection in here.
I mean, at least.
Right.
Listen to it.
Right. At least some. It's not great, but it's some. But it is really tragic that Idaho, when we know so many people there that consume cannabis, don't have any sort of protection. And you know how you were talking about they'll bust you for just a little bit of residue. Well, my brother had got pulled over, and of course consented to a search. You never do that. But he consented to a search, and then he was harassed like for months. Same cop. Pull him over, and he never carried anything in his car after that, but he continued to get harassed, and then he would just find some reason, some excuse to pull him over. Right. Oh, it smells like cannabis. Oh, are you sure?
Now I know that you have it, and you might have it next time. And like Russ was telling us about his cannabis unicorn in Twin Falls, Idaho. Idaho Falls, Idaho. Maybe Russ tells a little bit about that.
Oh, it was just when John Walters, the former drug czar, said that finding a first-time nonviolent marijuana offender in jail or prison is like finding a unicorn. You find one and you'll have a story because they just don't exist. So I asked my listeners to write in, and whoever did the most time for the least weed would be the marijuana unicorn. And the young lady from Idaho Falls did 15 days in jail because she was in a room with a brand new empty bong where nobody had any weed, and she had never smoked pot in her life.
Right, and this is what keeps happening, and it happens over and over and over again. And like we were discussing, they keep busting people left and right in Idaho, especially now because the movement's, growing so much, and people are,
people are starting to see it as a possibility, as a real possibility.
Right, and they're busting these people and trying to stop it, and it's not doing anything. There's still weed in Idaho. There's still weed on the streets.
You can't keep drugs out of prison.
Yeah.
What makes you think you can keep it out of the public? You know, I think people are looking for these perfect systems. They're looking for absolutely no crime. They expect humans to be absolutely perfect, obey every single law, and you know, and we tend to dictate towards that, and it's just an impossible fantasy. It's not going to happen. It's a shame that we have to waste so much resources, arresting somebody and housing them for 19 days, 3 square meals, a house over her head or a roof over her head, house over her head. God, I hope not. And for what? What did she do that was so awful? Oh, she visited a house
that had a bong.
In it. I visited a lot of people's house who had a lot worse in their house, and I quickly left. So it doesn't make any sense to me that we would be spending our resources, or the people that are sworn to protect us would aggressively, pursue somebody for something. There was no evidence of a crime.
Right.
There's no crime.
Right.
Where's the victimization? Where's the
like the resources they spend where they call in a drug dog from another county or another city to come in and search through this car that has absolutely no marijuana in it, just because you thought the driver might possibly have it because you've seen him with it before, because like you're with, your brother, he's been charged with it before, so that's not probable cause to harass somebody. And it's
what's even more frustrating is just, we were talking about earlier, it's legal, get your legal weed, and it's not legal. And then this is a very, this is an example of it. It's not legal. We need to push further. We need to keep going. We need to have, these are the reasons why we become activists. These are the cases in which demonstrate that this is a failed system. This is a failed drug war, and it's not going to change anything if we keep pursuing the same, or if we keep applying the same tactics.
Right. It's time to reevaluate our policies.
Well, and I think, so like why does anybody care if I use cannabis? Why do you care?
And nobody does, except for those who are, enacting these policies.
And I think with the Richard Lee, they mostly just come in and they do asset forfeiture, don't they?
Well, they seize a lot of assets and they break stuff, and then they never charge anyone with any crimes because they don't want it to go to court. They don't want to have to actually face up to this stuff and have public pressure and news stories.
It just seems like a way the DEA makes their money.
And DEA, a collaboration of the two. So they're looking for money there. And it always boils back down to money.
I mean, they have billions of dollars in their budget.
Well, we would have even more money if we legalized it. Yeah. I mean, the taxes and the jobs that would be created and all sorts,
Well, there's a whole, I say this all the time, there's an entire industry just waiting to blossom if we could just legalize weed or hemp. And it has absolutely nothing with smoking it, selling it, or producing it. There's a ton of industry just waiting to happen.
Just the little pokers to poke the inside of the bowl.
I know, a little casher that I got. I love that thing. Yeah, I love that thing.
Somebody has to make
the lighter
that.
leases, the magazines that are now getting new life. There's all kinds of the artistry that's going into some of these pieces. It's taken this counterculture, if you will, and brought it into the public eye. And there's some real value here, and it just doesn't make any sense to me to continue to put people in jail when our prisons are so overcrowded, when we can't get a pedophile or a rapist or a murderer or catch the guy that killed 7 kids, across town.
Well, I heard it was like 5 blocks away from where they were raiding the Oaksterdam, and so you have all these police there, but somebody's getting away over
So our
here.
resources are just not being spent wisely.
Yeah, and we need to be reevaluating that and putting them where they need to go to benefit our society, because right now it's detrimental and we're all getting angry. I mean, there was quite a crowd. I was watching that live today.
But when they lock up everybody, is that when we're going to finally get it done?
Yeah, speaking to Dale today, she said the scene at Oaksterdam was very tense. It was like, could have gotten riot-like if it weren't
they started arresting protesters and because they wouldn't move out of their way because they were trying to lead the DEA through. And there was one part I saw where a gentleman was so angry with them, he had his walker in front of their car trying to stop them from going down the road. I mean, we are getting angry.
It's like the lone man standing in front of the tank.
And then they just grab onto him and throw him. I mean, obviously, this man has a walker. He's an older
They don't care.
gentleman.
That's the thing. They don't care because they don't think of us as real people. They don't see us as real citizens of this country, law-abiding, tax-paying. I always say this: what other industry or what other group of people is paying as much as we are paying and begging for some sort of regulation and protection?
And at the same time, we're paying their paychecks.
Right. I'm paying you to hurt me.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. It's such a waste of our time and resources. And quite frankly, we don't have that much left.
No.
We don't have enough. This country is broke. It's broke. The people are broke. We don't have any more room in our prisons, and our prisons shouldn't be for profit in the first place. Right. But we shouldn't be stacking bodies there because we can't deal with the societal problems.
Here's a sobering statistic from our chat room. $1 trillion spent on the drug war, divided by 98,817 public schools in America, is a little over $10 million per school.
What a shame. What a shame.
It could have gone to those schools.
Do you know you have to live within a mile or outside of a mile of the elementary schools here to get a bus ride to school? Otherwise, you have to walk over these major public streets. And
we're closing down schools here left and right because we can't afford to keep them open. Yet this is where our money is going. This is where our resources are going, is to keep people in jail. It's to waste our time and our money arresting people that are doing nothing but saying, please regulate me. Please tax me.
Yeah.
Please just keep me out of jail. Just, give me some
keep
rules
my kids
to follow.
out of jail. And, start focusing on them and their education instead of their... ruining their
I
futures.
can go to the herb store and I can pick up stuff 10,000 times more toxic, 10,000 times more harmful. Yeah, nutmeg. I mean, that's just one. And nobody's going to come crashing through my door, putting me in jail, and making me share a 5x5 with 10 other chicks. It's just not going to happen. Right. But if I go to the wrong state and I happen to have a little bit of resin in my bowl, guess what? I'm going to jail for 19 years in Florida. Is that what it is?
Could be.
And Oklahoma, Garrett Overstreet, I don't know how he can stand to live there, but good on Garrett for keeping up the good fight. But that's a life sentence. I know. It's time to go to a break because I've been reminded I could keep going on. Anyway, we'll be right back. You're listening to A Different View. Thanks for joining us.
Tune in to the Normal Network every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern for our primetime lineup. We begin with an hour of daily Toker tunes, followed by Normal Show Live and Toker Talk Radio, live from Rolla J Studios in Portland, Oregon. Then you get 2 hours of recorded podcasts from national and international reformers, followed by our late night live shows at 11 p.m. Eastern. Then the whole 6-hour block repeats twice overnight. It's the Normal Network, your source for the best in marijuana media.
We're back. Thanks for listening. This is A Different View with Sarah Frank, and I'm Iva Cunningham. And we were talking about, the misjudgment of resources. And I kept thinking, what can we do? It's frustrating because just imagine if every kid, instead of busting people for marijuana, allowing us to grow hemp, just imagine every kid having a house over their head, food in their belly, healthcare, education.
What's that? House over their head again.
I did. I don't mean
roof
that.
Over their head.
I'm living in the Wizard of Oz.
That could be, okay.
Yeah, I'm living in the Wizard of Oz. Leave me alone. I'm in the Wizard. But I mean, just imagine that. I mean, if every kid had a roof over their head, medical health care or medical attention, health care when they needed it, food. I mean, an education, free college, for crying out loud. What would be the problem with that? Why can't we do that as a society? Because that just makes us better.
Have their really expensive car and their yacht, and
it just seems to me like that's a civilized approach, and we're supposed to be this forward-thinking country, but we're not very civilized.
Occupy, and what their statement has been, all along, is that it's all about those top people who
100%.
Have all the money, and cannabis ties into this very, very deeply, I think.
Well, I think there's a lot of people who never, ever want to see cannabis legalized because they do think of it as a scourge, as a gateway.
Right, and that's just miseducation through the years.
Right, that's miseducation.
I was talking to my father this weekend, and, I was telling him the thing that bothers me the most is that he lied to me. Mm-hmm. He didn't know he was lying to me, and he was, in fact, trying to do what was best for me, but he lied to me. Mm-hmm. And his parents lied to him, and their parents lied to them, and these have been lies that have been passed from generation to generation, and that needs to stop. We need to start with our own children and start educating them truthfully, and we can teach them to stay away from drugs.
Well, I think it's acceptable to lie to your children. We tell them about the Easter Bunny, we tell them about Santa Claus,
but
we tell them about the Tooth Fairy.
There becomes an age where we tell them the truth about that because they're growing up.
I don't know about that either. I think back to when I was growing up, even just asking my mother about, different things, it was just a forbidden topic. And I think it's just discomfort, but also because there's conflicting views out there. Right. You've experienced this, and you teach your child one thing, you send them to school, and they unteach them that, and then you're suddenly, there's a sheriff at your door going, "Excuse me, you taught your kid that marijuana was good." What?
Well, what?
What's your problem?
Come here. I'll teach you why it's good.
Come on in. I got an education for you.
With the raids today, and there's so much just going on. California's been raided over and over, and Oregon's been raided over and over, and Washington has. Like you were saying, there are these people who are seeing this now, and they're starting to come out, and these groups are starting to get bigger, and our forces and our voice is starting to get larger, and.
Well, I think what's encouraging is that those people who don't consume cannabis are becoming more supportive, realizing that this is a huge waste of
paycheck too.
Right, I'm paying to house you. Those people who don't use cannabis are paying for their taxes to house this person, and I think that if they knew that how much of their taxes was going to put people in jail, instead of towards schools or other social services, I think. It would piss off most people.
Yeah, most people. And that's when we start to rally. And it's really important for people to go to these rallies.
Right. And speaking of rallies, there's quite a few.
Yeah, there's quite a few coming. Tomorrow, there's 2 of them, especially. There's one in protest of today's federal raids on Oaksterdam. It's in the Bay Area, San Francisco. They've got speakers, including... they've got lots of speakers. I don't recognize most of their names, but it's they've got the Tom Amiano. It's the Bay Area Support Medical.
Tom Amiano's the assemblyman.
Right, the assemblyman, and it's called the Bay Area Support Medical Cannabis Patients Rally. And what they're wanting to do is to, they want to. Pretty much what it says is they want to stick it to the feds. They want the politicians are going, local politicians, famous activists in the area are all going to stick it to the feds.
So people want to find more information about that, where do they go?
It'll be on our site at differentview.us. We'll post their picture on there. And it's tomorrow, Tuesday, April 3rd, and it's going to be at the City Hall steps on Polk Street. And a rally is at 11 with a press conference at 11:30, and they're going to be marching to the federal building at noon.
And then there's another one.
There's another one. We've had Daisy Bram on our show recently a couple times. She's from freemybabies.org, and recently, she had her children taken from
ripped
her,
out of her
arms, 3 weeks old and 15 months old, both breastfeeding children, and nursing, and they were gone for 4 months, taken for 4 months, and then given back to them, and the charges were dropped, and then a month later they reopened and charged Daisy again with felony child abuse.
It's like they're trying to find anything that will stick.
Well, yeah, they're trying to get her child abuse for consuming cannabis and breastfeeding. And we all know it's non-toxic and won't cause, problems. And we can all look for that research online with Dr. Melanie Dreyer and the cannabis studies. And, tomorrow is her arraignment on these charges, and they're having a protest at Butte County Courthouse.
Well, if you haven't listened to that or seen the video, it's heart-wrenching.
It is.
Because the tiny little baby is ripped from her arms, and you can hear the anguish in her voice and the injustice that is being forced upon this child and family. I mean, it's cruel. We've heard, it makes me sick. We don't have children, but it makes me sick to think that this child is somehow better off going through this experience and put into the someone else's family or home.
It's traumatic experience for a brand new baby.
And this baby is going to have issues because of it.
Is the DA going to be there? Is he going to be
pay
there
for
to
the psychological counseling? Probably not.
For this child when he's older and needs this help and has these trust issues and has all these issues because of this bonding that was missed out on and this trauma that was caused to this little tiny mind.
Well, they'll just put him on some Xanax and call it good.
Probably.
Yeah, because that's better. That's much better.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get it. And, I was really disappointed to hear that Oaksterdam got raided. And when I hear stories, like Daisy's and the young lady here, Kim Hasty, it just, it just doesn't seem fair. Obviously it doesn't seem fair, but it just seems like a huge waste of time and resources to continue to put people in jail, destroy families, destroy businesses just to make some people richer. These are human right violations.
Yeah.
Was it Rolla J who
our own police departments against us to keep
these are the
us
people
off
we
their
pay.
back.
We pay them to support us. They're sworn to protect
the
us.
Protesters down at Oaksterdam today, their police department, who's supposed to follow their state laws, just like with Daisy's case, her police department, who needs to follow Prop 215 that passed and the voters wanted, they're going against that and using the resources,
the local resources. The DEA
resources
is using the local resources to violate their
citizens.
own citizens, and they're following right in line. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, hello. Excuse me, it's like, can we step back a minute? You are sworn to protect me.
Yeah.
I'm the one that's paying you to do that.
I'm your boss.
I mean, I would fire somebody that I paid to do something and they did the opposite.
Yeah, and somebody who took my own resources and hurt me with them.
Yeah.
That's a criminal, not somebody who smokes a joint.
Well, and it's become out of control, but this is exactly what we saw in ending alcohol prohibition. This is exactly what many people have predicted would happen. The louder the volume got on our side, I think there's been a lot of things in the news lately, different stories. Certainly, Russ's speech at Rice University. Your following Moms for Marijuana has taken some serious traction and gotten a lot of attention. And I think people are starting to go, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Regardless of what side of the line you're on, it's ridiculous to continue to put people in jail where we don't have room, we don't have resources, when there's so many homeless,
and
so many people.
Inevitable that we're going to legalize. I mean, someday, just like with our previous prohibition,
not
our
someday,
children,
someday very soon, and that's why the volume is. They're turning up.
Our children are going to turn to us and be like, "Mommy, tell me what prohibition was like," because they no longer remember it.
And I want to say, I forgot.
Me too.
I want to say I forgot all about it. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and what else?
Differentview.us.
Differentview.us. The show tonight replays, let's see.
Tuesday at 2 a.m., Friday at 8 a.m., Wednesday at 2 p.m., and Saturday at 4. Thank you so much to Jennifer for writing that down for us.
Yeah, no kidding. And I hope you keep a house over your head, too. All right, you're listening to A Different View. Catch us on a replay. We'll be back next week with another exciting guest, and hopefully Jennifer will be with us next week. And be safe out there.
About to quit, and I need another hit. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Pass it all around. Don't bogart that joint, my friend. Just pass it on down.
You're listening to the Normal Network, where the time is 4:20, 24/7, 365.
Hi, I'm Radical Russ. One of the best things about marijuana